Hey everybody, this is Bill Knutson, the host of the Sportsocology Show, here on Thursday, February 13th. Down here in Atlanta, we're getting over our second snowpocalypse in the last 2 weeks, so we're all kind of in our homes, kind of snowed in for a couple of days. Hope everybody else around the country is doing all right. I think I've got about 5 things I want to discuss on the Sportsocology Show today. So let's get right to business, shall we? They were talking about the Mount Rushmore of NBA players yesterday. And if you're not familiar with what Mount Rushmore is, it's the mountainside out in South Dakota that has the carvings of the 4 presidents sculpted into the mountains, which is on my bucket list of things that I must see, and I think I'm going to do a show in the future on bucket lists, especially sports bucket lists. Might even throw in a few other things like Mount Rushmore. But anyway, they were talking about the 4 top NBA players of all time that would be on the Mount Rushmore of NBA basketball players. So I decided I was going to put one together, and the debate was whether LeBron James should be on Mount Rushmore right now, and I'll give you my opinion on that. Of course, to me, it's obvious that number 1 has to be Michael Jordan. He is the greatest player of all time. I guess if you wanted to, you could argue whether he's the greatest, but to me, he is absolutely number 1. Magic Johnson. What he could do, his ball skills at 6'9", handling that Showtime Lakers teams, you know, the Showtime Lakers teams of the 80s, the 3/4 length of the court bounce passes and behind the back and all of that. Because of him and Larry Bird, but I think even more Magic Johnson, that really brought the NBA to national attention and helped to build what it's become today. I guess, even though it's before my time, you'd have to put Bill Russell. The man won 11 championships. Now, granted, back then, there weren't a lot of teams, and the competition wasn't nearly as fierce. Really, the only competition that Bill Russell ever had was Wilt Chamberlain, and that's very formidable competition. But it seemed like everybody that was good, with the exception of Chamberlain, back in those days in the 50s, they played for the Celtics. So I kind of, don't think of Bill Russell quite at the top, but with 11 championships, I'm going to go with him just because of that. And I think my 4th one would be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He probably had the most unstoppable shot that's ever existed in the history of basketball, that skyhook. He's got 6 championships. All 6 of the times he won the championships, he was the MVP. So, and he's also got over 38,000 points, which is number 1 all time. So I have those 4 at this moment. Now, getting to LeBron, 2 championships, 4 MVPs. He's done incredible things, but he still has a lot of basketball left to play. If he wins another championship or 2, gets into the top 7 or 8 all time in scoring, has 3 or 4 titles, then maybe you could put him on Mount Rushmore. But I don't know which one of the 4 I'd take out. Maybe Jabbar, or maybe they'll have to build a 5th president somewhere on that mountain in South Dakota, so there'll be 5, so we can have LeBron in that top 5. But I think he will be on the Mount Rushmore of NBA players by the time all is said and done. But he's only 29, and barring injury or something, he's probably got another 10 years to go, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now I'm going to move on to quickly a NASCAR topic. Now, as I've stated before, growing up in New York City, I am not a NASCAR fan. I did a previous show on NASCAR just because I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are NASCAR fans. There are a lot of NASCAR fans here, so I decided to do a show with some friends. But there was a topic about Danica Patrick that came up, and Richard Petty, who is the king of all racing, had something to say about Danica Patrick. He said that the only reason basically that we know about her is she's an attractive woman. If she were a man, that we wouldn't know anything about her. Now, I agree with what he's saying, because she certainly has not done anything on the NASCAR circuit or anything to deserve any attention. But she is a pretty woman, so that's why she gets the attention that she gets. So I understand that, and I'm sure that there are guys in NASCAR that are jealous of the attention she gets for not winning races. But just because I agree with Richard Petty doesn't mean that he should have said it. Because, and you'll excuse the pun, it makes him sound like he's petty by saying something like that. Why does he have to come out and try and embarrass or humiliate her, even if what he's saying is true, which I think it is? But he, as the king of racing, he's got his legendary status cemented. Why does he have to come out and say something derogatory like that about her? So hopefully he'll apologize in public one day, because just because you're right doesn't mean that you need to be heard saying something like that. So now I want to move on to something that happened in college basketball earlier this week between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. Guys chasing the ball under the basket, goes into the crowd, falls into the crowd. We've seen that 100 times. Now, something was said by one of the fans. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know what was said. But the player is a black player, and the fan was a white man. And the player said that he was called a racial slur, which I would tend to believe happened by the way he reacted. But again, I don't know. I wasn't there. Only those couple of people that were there actually know what happened. But I wanted to talk a little about fan behavior and player behavior. Now, if he was called a racial slur, the N-word, whatever it was that was said, I certainly understand why he reacted angrily. But also, that's going to happen, especially in basketball, because the fans are literally right on top of you. They're going to say a lot of things. You have to be able to control yourself, because I'm sure he is not the first person that has ever been personally insulted with racial slurs or something about a family member or a spouse. He has to be able to control himself. That's why, when he was suspended for 3 games, I thought that was a fit punishment. Now, he did apologize for what he did, so I'm good with the 3-game suspension. Now, as for that fan, you have the right to say things, to boo and things like that, because you paid good money to come and see that game. But racial slurs, personal attacks on a player or a spouse or another member of the family, that is totally, totally uncool. And I think that the NCAA, in this case for college basketball, or the NBA, or even to a lesser extent, because the fans aren't quite as close, baseball and especially football, I don't know if it's security or the police or who would be in charge of something like that, but there has to be a certain conduct level that we expect from the fans. And again, 99% of the fans come and just want to have a good time, act responsibly, and act like decent human beings. But it's the 1%, guys like this and other instances, that we've all seen and heard about, that give the 99% that are good a bad name. So I don't know what the answer is, but just because you buy a ticket doesn't mean that you should be able to use racial slurs towards somebody, or insult a man's wife, or insult him in a super personal manner. If you want to boo him, that's fine. You have the right to do that, but there needs to be a limit, and somebody needs to come up with the proper answer, because I don't remember back when I was growing up having all of these issues. And I understand why some of the players, may not want to sign autographs, even though I don't think that's right, because without the fans, without us putting out our hard-earned money to come and watch them, they wouldn't have the careers that they have. But they also shouldn't have to be insulted to that level or have a worry about their personal safety or things of that nature. So something needs to be done. Somebody smarter than me needs to look into this and figure it out, so we can just get back to the fans enjoying the game and the players playing the game, and not have these kind of incidents that we've had. Now, I want to move on to a little bit of a sensitive subject. Michael Sam, the linebacker from the University of Missouri, that is coming into the 2014 NFL draft. He is the first openly gay person that's eligible for the NFL draft, excuse me. And I know that there shouldn't be any issues because his sexual orientation is nobody's business, and it shouldn't be anybody's business. It should just be about, can he play football well enough to have a spot on an NFL roster? But in the real world, that's not how it's going to be, because there are going to be men, obviously, the team showers together, dresses together. They probably walk around undressed in the locker room, I would assume. And I think that would make certain guys uncomfortable. There are a lot of guys, in sports that are not extremely intelligent or well-versed on things. Not everybody. There are plenty of intelligent ones too. But there are guys out there that are, kind of, I don't know if ignorant's the right word, but they're just not well-versed on how to handle themselves, the way they speak, the way they conduct themselves. And I think this is going to be a problem for Michael Sam. Of course, it'll depend on the team that drafts him. Every team has different personalities, different rules, different ways of doing things. But I don't think it's just going to be just the way he plays football, because wherever he goes, he's going to bring a big media circus. And all of the guys on his team, all during training camp and even who knows how far into the season, are going to have to be answering questions on how do you feel to be playing with a gay man? Are there issues in the locker room? Separate, or does he shower with the guys? And I don't see, they're not going to build separate showers for him. He's going to shower with the team, just like any other player would. And I guess, I have no problem with him being gay. That wouldn't bother me at all. He should not be abused or chastised in any way. Now, that's not my lifestyle. I'm heterosexual, but he has the right to be whatever he wants to be and not have to worry about being abused. But again, I think I'm more well-versed about these things and how to handle myself than some of these guys in the NFL who should just be concentrating on playing football. The media circus is going to be outrageous. Questions are going to have to constantly be asked of these guys, and they're not going to want to deal with it. They just want to play football, but it's not going to end up that way. I just hope that Michael Sam will be judged just on his ability to play football, and if he's good enough to play, that he has a spot on whatever team drafts him, and hopefully they'll get on to some other things that actually are more worthy of the news. This is newsworthy, I get it, but let's let it go pretty quickly and just get back to the things that are important, football, and hopefully Michael Sam will have a really good and successful career. All right, so now we got the announcement yesterday that this coming season, 2014, will be Derek Jeter's last. Now, I have never liked the New York Yankees. I grew up in New York. I am a lifelong Mets fan. I always will be a Mets fan. I will never like the Yankees as long as I live. But Derek Jeter is a different story. He is absolutely class personified. There's never 1 second that he says anything negative about anybody. He comes out every day, gives his best, always says the right things, on the field, off the field, conducts himself with the ultimate in class. He is the ultimate role model. Now, would I have loved to see him in Mets blue and orange? Absolutely. But a man like him, he needs to be a Yankee and only a Yankee, and obviously that's the way it's going to be. He had a really rough season last year, breaking his ankle and a couple of other issues. He didn't get to play very much, and I know that he didn't want to go out like that. So I'm hoping this year, not that I'm ever rooting for him to win the World Series because he plays for the Yankees. But I guess it wouldn't bother me tremendously if a guy with that kind of class, that kind of player, would go out on top. Because he's the type of guy that, there are so many guys out there, the NFL, the NBA, baseball, they're all about me. What can I do to get on SportsCenter that night? It's all about me, with my dancing and my talking and all of these other ridiculous antics that true professionals would never even think of doing. But there's a lot of clowns out there, and if they didn't have the great athletic ability that they have, with the lack of intelligence and class that they show, I don't know what they'd be doing in society, because they don't know how to handle themselves properly on the field or off. So I guess, if you're a great athlete, those other things are forgiven, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but they seem to get looked over. But I congratulate Derek Jeter on his tremendous career, which I hope he has a great ending to it. He's been, Hall of Fame class on the field and off, and I believe 2020 will be when he's eligible for the Hall of Fame, and there's no doubt that he will get in. But it brings me back, to another issue I had on a previous show about how certain Hall of Famers don't get 100% of the vote. Derek Jeter won't get 100% of the vote either. And it's like, are you serious? How could you possibly justify not putting Derek Jeter on your ballot? But there'll be somebody, because he won't get 100% of the vote. He'll probably get 97, 98% of the vote. And whoever doesn't vote for Derek Jeter should never be allowed to vote again. What is it that he didn't do? He's been to 7 World Series, 5 championships he's got, over 3,000 hits, the ultimate in class on and off the field, and there'll be at least a couple of knuckleheads that don't vote for him. I just don't get it. I don't know. I just don't know what to say about that. But I think that's all I have for today. Another show will be coming, at least once a week as things happen, maybe more than one show a week. Today's Thursday, February 13th, so, probably next Thursday or Friday, approximately one show every week. We'll see how it goes. I thank you so much for listening, and when you hear my show, please tell everybody else that you know about it, and leave comments. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. It tells you how to do that. And please, when you go to the Sportsocology Show, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. It will let you know every time I put a show on the air. It will notify you. So please let everybody you know, your family and friends, know about it. And I'll look forward to the next show sometime next week. Until then, have a great day. And we'll see you next time, America, wherever you are.